Have you ever heard the story of the tortoise and the hare? It's a classic, right? The slow and steady tortoise beats the fast but arrogant hare. But what if I told you that story is missing something? What if the tortoise wasn't just slow and steady? What if the tortoise was fast? Let's dive into a version of the story you've never heard before, a tale not just about persistence, but about hidden strengths and the power of perception. Picture this, a bustling forest community, everyone gearing up for the annual Great Forest Race. It's the biggest event of the year, a spectacle of speed, agility, and endurance. And who's the reigning champion, the undefeated, the one everyone bets on? Ricky the rabbit, of course. Ricky was a blur of white fur, a living lightning bolt. He'd spend his days zipping through the meadows, leaving dust clouds in his wake, his confidence as big as his long ears. He loved the attention, the cheers, the way everyone looked at him with awe. Now, in this same forest lived a turtle named Sheldon. Sheldon wasn't like the other turtles. They were content with their slow pace, munching on lettuce and basking in the sun. Sheldon, however, had a secret. He was a dreamer. He would watch the falcons soar in the sky, the cheetahs sprint across the plains on the other side of the river, and he'd feel a spark inside him, a desire for speed. He was tired of being seen as just a slow, plodding creature. He knew he had more to offer. So one day, to the astonishment of the entire forest, Sheldon waddled up to the registration table for the Great Forest Race. He put his name down. A hush fell over the crowd, and then it was broken by a single, loud laugh. It was Ricky the rabbit. He hopped over, tears of mirth streaming down his face. "Sheldon, you're entering the race. This is the best joke I've heard all year. You'll be lucky to make it past the starting line by nightfall." The other animals joined in. The squirrels chittered with laughter, the deer snorted, and the birds tweeted in amusement. Sheldon's heart sank a little, but he held his head high. He looked Ricky straight in the eye and said, "I'm racing, and I'm going to give it my all." This only made Ricky laugh harder. "All right, Sheldon, I'll see you at the finish line. Maybe next week." The day of the race arrived. The air was electric. Animals from all corners of the forest gathered along the race path. The starting line was a chaotic mix of fur, feathers, and scales. There was Ricky, stretching ostentatiously, winking at the crowd. And there was Sheldon, calm and focused, tucked away near the back. He ignored the whispers and the giggles. He was there to prove something, not just to them, but to himself. The starting pistol fired, and boom, the racers shot off. Ricky was gone in a flash, a white streak disappearing down the path. The other fast contenders, like Florence the fox and Charlie the cheetah, were hot on his heels. And Sheldon, he started moving, but not in the way anyone expected. You see, Sheldon had been training in secret. For months, he'd been practicing a technique he developed himself. He'd pull his head and limbs into his shell, and by shifting his weight and using the smooth, curved surface of his back, he could roll, and he could roll fast. He'd practiced on grassy hills, learning to navigate bumps and turns. Building momentum, becoming a green spinning cannonball. As the pack of runners settled into their pace, a strange sound began to build from the back. A worry, rumbling sound. The other animals looked back, confused, and then they saw it. A green blur, spinning and tumbling, was rocketing past the slower competitors. It was Sheldon. He was rolling down the first big hill, a look of pure determination on his face. The laughter died in the animals' throats, replaced by gasps of shock. Ricky, far ahead, was taking it easy. He'd built up a massive lead and decided it was time for a little showboating. He stopped to chat with some badger friends, signed a few autographs for the field mice, and even took a quick carrot juice break. No need to rush, he thought. That slowpoke Sheldon is probably still polishing his shell at the starting line. Meanwhile, Sheldon was making incredible time. He used every slope to his advantage, rolling down hills at unbelievable speeds. On the flat sections, he'd pop his legs out and use a powerful, shuffling gait he'd perfected much faster than a normal turtle's walk. He wasn't just steady, he was strategic. He conserved his energy on the flats and maximized his speed on the declines. He was a master of his own unique biomechanics. The course wound through tricky sections. There was the Whispering Woods, a dense forest where the path was narrow and twisted. The runners had to slow down to navigate the trees. But Sheldon, in his compact rolling form, could zip through the gaps like a pinball. Then came the babbling brook. The other animals had to carefully leap from stone to stone. Ricky, being overconfident, misjudged a jump and slipped, soaking his feet and losing precious seconds while he grumbled and shook the water off Sheldon. He just retracted into his waterproof shell and floated across like a little green boat, paddling with his feet. As the race neared its final stretch, the crowd at the finish line was getting restless. They expected to see Ricky any second. Then, a lookout from high in the trees shouted, "A racer is coming. It's green." A confused murmur spread through the crowd. Green. It couldn't be, but it was. Over the final hill came Sheldon, not rolling this time, but powering through on foot, his legs pumping with everything he had left. He was exhausted, but the finish line was in sight. Behind him, in the distance, a white speck was frantically trying to close the gap. It was Ricky. He'd finally realized his mistake and was sprinting with all his might, his face a mask of panic. The crowd went from stunned silence to a roar of disbelief and excitement. They were cheering for the turtle. They were chanting his name, Sheldon, Sheldon, Sheldon. Fueled by their cheers, Sheldon gave one final push. He crossed the finish line just as Ricky, breathless and defeated, skidded to a halt a few feet behind him. Silence. Then an eruption of applause. Sheldon, the turtle everyone laughed at, had won the Great Forest Race. He hadn't won by being slow and steady. He had won by being smart, innovative, and unexpectedly fast. He had used his unique body, his shell, not as a burden, but as his greatest asset. Ricky the rabbit stood there, panting, looking at Sheldon, not with mockery, but with a newfound respect. He walked over, his ears drooping. I don't understand, he stammered, how Sheldon, catching his breath, gave a tired but happy smile. You're fast in a straight line, Ricky, but the race isn't always a straight line. You assumed my shell makes me slow. You never considered it could make me fast. That day, the forest learned a valuable lesson. It's not just about being slow and steady or fast and flashy. It's about understanding your own unique strengths and using them in ways no one expects. Never underestimate someone just because they're different. The quietest person in the room might have the most brilliant idea. The one who seems to be struggling might be training for a marathon you know nothing about. True strength isn't always obvious. Sometimes the slow turtle has a secret, and it's a game changer. So, look around you. Who's the Sheldon in your life? Maybe it's a colleague, a friend, or maybe it's you. Don't be afraid to roll it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this fresh take on a classic tale, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that make you think. See you next time.